right, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. So it is 7:15 and we will get started with our regular monthly meeting for January 25th, the day before Australia Day. Australia Day Eve, if you will. I'd first like to have everybody stand and salute the flag for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and coming in at our later time, allowing us the time for our educational meeting beforehand. I'd first like to start off with our introductions. Guests on the list, and please, if there's any other guests that have come in since this, please acknowledge yourselves. We'd be glad to know you're here. Scott Ezra with the .ca Daily Globe, Kent Small, John Hendrickson with Kennedy McKee, Jared Bush and Danielle Stroud with the Foundation, and Chelsea Shorts, our Academic Tutor of the Month, who will be recognizing here shortly. So, any other guests that have come in since?
I see Ethel Peterson back there.
Ethel, Mrs. Peterson, aye.
Lindy. And Lindy.
Oh, good. Well, welcome everyone. We'd like to start off with the reading of our mission statement, as we'd like to start all meetings. The .ca Community College mission statement is, .ca Community College will provide opportunities for high quality learning and will enhance community and personal development in a student-centered environment. On that, because it's kind of topical, and because, as I mentioned to these guys, this is like my 15 minutes of fame getting to sit up here, so taking advantage of that, abusing it maybe.
Australia.
So we, for those who don't peruse the board agenda items, we implemented a year or so ago now a resolution or a discussion form that we put at the beginning of every resolution that's presented to the board, or every actionable item. The form really helps us focus on what we're looking at in that item, bringing up the background information of what the item, who's presenting it, and who will be talking about it, the considerations to take in, and the recommendation of whoever is presenting it, as well as the financial considerations within it. And so the reason I bring this up right now is because, again, it's my chance to talk, but I'd really like us to add to this, and I don't think it's really an actionable thing. It's something that we can just decide to do. But I'd really like to see the addition of our mission consideration. I want to see on this form how whatever topic that is, it's going to be presented, how it's affecting, or where the goal is in meeting our mission. I think that helps keep us on track and keeps us with the forefront. That's why we have a mission. That's why we need to focus on it, and I think that'll help keep our discussions topical and focused in the right direction. So I just throw that out to the rest of the board. We can make a decision on it on our own. But so here at the beginning, as always, we'd like to welcome any remarks from the audience. I just quoted it, but I probably was wrong. If anybody was here for the educational session beforehand, please remember that this is a civil environment. So, but if anybody wants to come up and talk, the microphone's open. So, and maybe Glenn can quote the statute, but it's KSA 21. So, yeah, so. Hearing none, I'd like to then resign my seat, and this is the end of my 15 seconds of fame, to Dr. Nolte, who will then lead the board in their annual organization meeting, and this is where we'll vote on our new chair and vice chair and rest of our staff. Dr. Nolte.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Your bit of fame is going to be, mine's much shorter, by the way. So there you go. I'd go ahead and I would like to open nominations for the chair position.
I would like to nominate Gary Harshberger for chair. I think Mr. Harshberger has demonstrated a good understanding of the board's purpose and function, and his years of experience on other boards will serve the college well. I think he will make the time out of his busy schedule to perform the many duties of the chair.
Thank you, Trustee Malone.
I move that the nomination cease.
Thank you, Trustee.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Trustee. Now you may change seats,
Gotta
sir.
vote, gotta vote.
Well,
Oh,
have
we
to
must
on
vote.
that.
We have to vote.
We have to vote on
Excuse
that.
me. Yeah, that was like half the group. Okay.
I'm leaving you. I should have been helping
You should have been
up here.
helping.
I'm
No,
sorry.
that's
So we have
okay.
to vote here.
Can we have a vote here? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Changing of the gavel.
Pack my bags.
Congratulations. Is that your old chair?
This is the broken one that you guys always shift around. that we all
No,
find?
that's the broken one now.
Okay. Wow.
Speech?
First off, thank you all very much. I do appreciate the honor and the role you've bestowed upon me. I have been on many boards, like Trustee Malone has said, and I feel fortunate to have the training that I've had, although relatively new on the board, so I understand we have 4 basically new trustees now. So welcome on board. Do realize how hard it is, and the learning curve is steep for new trustees to get up to speed. And I've been on board now for roughly 8 months, so I have a lot to learn, and hope that my training in the previous boards will help. Being in this role, I'll have a learning curve as well, so bear with me. And it's my intent and hope that we serve this college and this community to our utmost. So with that, thanks again, and we'll continue on with the meeting.
Yeah, you have to pick your vice chair.
So can I have a nomination for vice chair?
Chairman Hirschberger, I would like to nominate Jeremy President because he needs more than 15 minutes. And I believe that he brings to this table a history, and I don't want to say that you're old here,
That's what I was waiting to hear.
but I do believe that we need some of the past history and your knowledge to help us keep moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, I move the nomination cease and the candidate be elected by acclamation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, welcome, Vice Chairman.
All those say nay.
All those say nay. But she said by unanimous. Okay. Trustee appointments, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am?
he said I can't second my own nomination.
Well, I was sitting there looking at
Okay.
you, and I was like, I didn't think
I
you could
didn't
either.
either.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. So, let's,
Our parliamentarian.
yes.
Well, I was going to
Jump on
call
me.
you on that, but we're, I try to.
I admit my own mistakes.
So, since we
Same here.
did that formal, we'll go ahead and have another vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. All right, so we have roles to fill. One would be parliamentarian. Let me get my book out. Get organized here.
Yeah, we did.
Do we have where's the list?
Board of Trustees.
It's
Keep going.
There we go.
I know Carla sent one out.
There we go. I knew it. Okay. So, parliamentarian. Last year it was Terry Malone. So, I would entertain nominations for new parliamentarian.
I nominate Terry Malone.
I move the nomination cease.
Okay. Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Alternate parliamentarian, last year was the chair. So, is there any things that we should consider in this? What was the past history, which does not have to guide our path, but,
I don't think there really is a.
okay, all right.
I think that's a good move.
Bart, what's that, Terry?
I said I think that would be a good idea,
It's just,
if you were the
okay.
secondary one or the alternate. Because sometimes I don't catch the people, seconding their own alternate.
Now, so is this up for vote? Do we vote
I
on
don't think
this?
so.
I don't think we do, because this is appointments.
I think you can appoint.
I can appoint.
Absolutely.
I thought so. I can look for volunteers.
Ask for volunteers, and otherwise you can appoint.
No, then I can appoint somebody. Okay, thanks for clarifying that, but I had that feeling, like I said, it's gonna take me a little time to get up to speed on this format, so. All right, so I'll go ahead and take the role of alternate parliamentarian if somebody else does not wish to be. Seeing none, we'll move on. The KACCT rep was the former chair. What I would like to do is nominate Ms. Hampton to be that.
I feel like it ought to be some new people.
Okay,
If you feel like you have the time, it's ideal for the chair to be that person. And if we have an alternate, so when you can't go, I really would like for some of you newer people to get into that picture. Thank you.
Forrest, on that, could you maybe, for the benefit of all of our new folks and the ones that was not so new, maybe explain kind of what the requirements of the KCCT rep would be?
Okay.
So they know what they're getting into.
Okay.
Not
And
wanting to
Morris
get,
is their
not wanting to
rep.
get into one of those.
I want them to know.
This representative is a voting delegate to the quarterly meetings for KACCT. And actually, if that person can't be there, there usually is a designated alternate. But you do sign in so that they know that each college had their representative there and did get to vote. It's an excellent way to see the connection between all the colleges in the state, as well as keep up with the things that are going on nationally. And it really is a worthwhile experience for the time that it takes. Getting to meet the other trustees and presidents from across the state is very beneficial when you come time to consider issues that might affect our college as well as some of the others. So that essentially is what the job is. Did I leave out anything that you can think of?
It's great, great explanation.
Those meetings are usually quarterly, right?
Mhm. And there might be other meetings called. One of them is coming up with the Phi Theta Kappa induction in a couple of weeks, and that is such a rewarding experience. Those are community college scholars. They are the people who are going to be identified with Phi Theta Kappa. The our Phi Theta Kappa is community college, but Phi Beta Kappa being the university level. So it is comparable to Phi Beta Kappa. And a wonderful experience for the people who are nominated and become active in that organization. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks,
We
and
have
it'd be
two.
nice if we could all go. 2 weeks.
We have 2 students, and it's over like Valentine's Day, like 15th.
Usually the colleges have 2 students. Now, there are some colleges with extra campuses who will nominate from the other campuses. So you'll think they're really filling the roster, but that's wonderful. If they have that many students of that caliber, to recognize them and forever in their resume, that item will be an asset for them. So that's just the first thing that's coming up.
And then AACC will then have a Coca-Cola scholar
True.
in each state, and all 50 states are represented. So that's
And
even
that is significant.
significant, very much.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
If someone feels like they could do it, I think we should certainly consider the chair.
Okay. I will do that, but I'd sure like to have an alternate from the field.
There you are, Kathy.
Kathy?
I have Morris's information from the last time.
Okay, that'll be good, all right. So Kathy?
Yes, I will accept.
Florstein, thank you very much for your service on that. Okay, Foundation Representative, I'd like to stay with Dr. Presley on that. Is that good with you?
I'm fine doing it unless somebody else wants to jump up.
Is there somebody else that would like to step into that role?
Foundation representative goes to the foundation meetings, which are, Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, quarterly?
They are quarterly.
Yes, good. And typically meet during the noon hour during the week. And I'm really excited about the foundation and all the great things that Chris and the foundation is doing. And so it's really taking off. So I'm super excited about what the foundation's got going and talking about it. So it's a great thing. And so whoever wants to do that or be the alternate, I'd be willing to be the representative or continue to be. So, but it's really great, and we're all welcome, I think.
However, if you all want to come, you have to clear with Carla first.
That's true. That is true. If we all show up.
Permission slips.
Yes.
Coma.
Yes, because of
Remember
coma.
your coma training.
You know, if I may, I'd like to kind of put out a little bit of my philosophy, and this kind of stems from the tenure at the bank. You know, I like, and this is what I try to practice at the Water Authority, is I like to move my chairmanships around and the people that comprise the subcommittees, because to me that makes a more informed, dynamic, engaged board when you have everybody at any time can step into those roles. So it would be my intention that every year we visit this and move it around and do that so we can build more board dynamics. So, Dr. Presley, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to put Ms. Kobelik on that, if you would mind.
As the alternate?
No, as the representative.
Certainly. I
Okay.
would be happy to do that.
All right. I don't want to, put anything upon you, but if you would like to do that, I would sure appreciate it. And then as alternate, Jeremy, can I keep you in there for backup for your history? Okay. The RSVP Board Representative. Explain to me what that is.
That is a little bit of a confusing title because the college is a sponsor for a program that is a government-funded and titled Retired Senior Volunteer Program. That really is a misnomer. There are a lot of volunteers all over the country who are not retired senior volunteers. There has been some discussion about calling these centers volunteer centers instead of retired senior volunteers. I don't know whether that'll happen here because the fund is coming from the government. It's now listed as retired senior volunteer, but there are other places who have gone to the title foundation or volunteer center. But this is an organization that is amazing and not known as well as they should be. One of the things they do is take people to medical appointments or whatever business appointments they need who have no means of getting there, including going to Wichita or even Denver. Somebody has to drive them there. Somebody has to supply the gas money, insurance for the car, and a little bit of stipend for the volunteer driver. Some some of that for veterans has right now been being picked up by the American Legion, but there is a much bigger need than they can cover. So it's a big priority process for this organization right now. They've also organized cleanup. They helped with the storm cleanup. They've helped scrape paint and put new paint on people's houses. They've helped do things like repairs on people's houses. And it's a big process that is entirely done by volunteers with the money to pay for whatever they have to do. Debbie Allen is the director. There is a board of directors who helps her make those decisions and does a lot of the volunteering. So I am really a booster for what RSVP does, even though I think it should be called Volunteer Center. But that's beside the point. This is a representative from this board because we get the money and give it to, or disperse it to them to do the work they do. So that's the reason we are involved with RSVP. I would continue to do that if you'd like me to.
Thank you, because with your history with this college, which is very valuable, I think you'd be a great fit. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then the endowment representative, well, that was merged with foundation, so that seat does not exist anymore. Correct. Okay. At this juncture, I'd like to bring this up to the board, something I've been thinking about as I've been at the previous sessions. And I realize in policy or bylaws, we don't have the ability to do this, no standing subcommittees. I'd really like you all to consider something that I'd like to do. There's about 4 subcommittees I'd really like to get set up. Okay? And that would be in, and if you have any suggestions to this, that would be helpful as well. I think in finance and in curriculum. I'm drawing a blank right now. Title IX.
And student services.
And student services. Thank you for refreshing my memory. So those are the 4 that I'd like to set up. We would have to change our policy to that. But I think we would like to have those standing committees. I'd like to have 2 people in each one. And I've got a pretty good idea of who I'd like to have in each one. But by no means does that mean you can't give me ideas of what you would like to be on as well. And I think by next meeting, we will take action to adopt this if the body wants to, and then I'll appoint people to those positions. Sound good?
What was the last one, Gary?
Title IX and student services.
No.
Okay. So, next up, administrative appointments.
Gary?
Yes, sir.
Before you go to that, you might have the board approve those appointments, because it says the board makes those appointments, those have been appointments
Okay.
for the membership. Just have them approve what you just got through there.
Okay, so we
It
just
says
went
a bunch.
through the appointments, and can we do it all blanket? And I would entertain a motion to approve the appointments as presented.
That's so moved.
Ann, thank you.
Second.
And Jeremy, second, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. So administrative appointments. So then it says, I, Chairman Gary Harshberger, recommend the following administrative appointments. So, Secretary and Clerk of the Board, Dr. Nolte.
Thank you.
President Nolte. Deputy Secretary, Clerk of the Board, Freedom of Information Officer, Carla Petty, Executive Assistant to the President. Treasurer of the Board, Veda Hampton, Vice President of Operations and Finance. And Legal Counsel, Attorney Glenn Curbs, Attorney at Law. then we need to vote to approve those. And I would take a motion to approve those appointments.
So moved.
All right, Chairman Malone, Trustee Malone, and Trustee Kovalik. Okay. And then approval, move on to approval of minutes of past meeting. We have that.
All in favor?
I didn't say that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Told you, bear with me. Bear with me. All right. Now we'll review the minutes of the last board meeting. And I will entertain a motion to approve.
I move.
Second.
Okay. Motion and second. Discussion?
Yes, I have a question. On item B on the second page, it's addition of personnel, item number 9 and 10. Are those new personnel or replacement personnel?
Those are replacements.
So those
Because one is a security officer and the other was a residence life director. Those are just replacements.
And we have a resident life director before this time?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you.
Okay. There has been a motion and second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Okay. Okay, approval of the agenda. So, this is the thing that always tripped me up at the previous meetings, is how you went about approving the agenda. So, I think first we have to go through the additions, is that accurate? So we have, do you present those?
I can, if you'd
Okay.
like. We did add action item H, and you do have these copies at your seats tonight. When we add something, they will be at your seats. Action item H is an evaluation of the president. Action item I is the board self-evaluation. That is going to be
Did you take?
on the agenda.
You took yours?
And then we did have an addition to the consent agenda, item 5, which is assistant football coach employment appointment.
Okay. All right, thank you, Carla. So, have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move.
I'll second.
Kathy second, Jeremy first. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The agenda has been approved. So next up, we'll move to the reports of the trustees. And we have, for the Student Government Association, there is no report, but is there anybody here from the Student Government Association anyway?
They've been on vacation.
In vacation, okay. Okay, Academic Tutor of the Month, so Lisa Killian.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here this evening to present our January Tutor of the Month. Chelsea Schartz is our tutor for January. She graduated from Riley County High School. Her parents are David Schartz and the late Janet Barnes-Jones. She currently has a 3.6 GPA and her major is in business. Her plans are to transfer to Wichita State and do great things. I'm sure she will. She's on a DC3 vocal scholarship on the President's Honor Roll for fall of 2016, the Vice President's Honor Roll for spring of 2017 and fall of 2017. She's also the secretary of both Choir Club and Art Club. We selected her this month because Chelsea has been with us. She started in August of 2017, and she has just been one of those people that whenever we need anything done, she just steps right up and is happy to do it. She's helped out in the humanities lab. We have had some of our tutors go over to help man that when their instructors aren't available to man that. So she's spent a lot of hours over there. She's also, we were short last semester on speech tutors for Marge's class, and she voluntarily went and met with Marge and got the training she needed to be able to tutor in that subject. So she's just one of those people that I can always depend on to do whatever's necessary to get the job done. So congratulations, Chelsea.
I've heard you sing. You sing very well.
Go ahead and stand in the center, please. I'll take photos.
Job well done. Okay, thank you for that. Now, Phi Theta Kappa Student of the Month, Professor Brandy Seldrin.
She's ill.
She's ill. So do we have somebody else to present the Phi Theta Kappa Student?
We'll present two next
Two,
month.
we'll do two next month. All right. Well, thank you. Now up to trustees' reports. So we'll start with Dan.
I have no idea what I'm supposed to report.
This is a forum for you to express your views or questions, concerns, what have you, or what mind you.
Oh my, I have a lot of concerns. I think maybe I do have a lot of concerns, but I think maybe a work session would be a better place for that, because I just have a lot of questions, things I don't know, things I just don't, well, just things I don't know. So I think probably a work session would be a better place for that.
Okay.
And we will be having one pretty quickly in the spring, or maybe even sooner than that, to go ahead and visit with each one of our areas and let y'all know what they do, and then also maybe you'll be able to be informed on some of those things. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you, sir.
Kathy?
I just want to say thank you to everyone for this opportunity to serve our community and our college. It's quite an honor to sit up here at the table, and especially to hear from the student tutors, because so many of them have gone through our school district. And as an ex-principal, it has been an honor to watch them grow and see what kind of ladies and gentlemen they have become. So for the community, that says a lot, and I appreciate it.
Dr. Presley?
So update on the foundation, because we had just had foundation meeting, and I don't want to steal all of Chris's thunder, so I will let her share as she gets all of the things. But like I had alluded to, the foundation is doing some great things, and there's some great things to come, and she's going to be making announcements, and I encourage everybody to be looking for those in the paper and looking for those around, because I think the foundation is doing a great job, and we can't thank them enough for what they're doing and what they provide for our students and provide for our college and the community. It's a great group of people, and the attendance at the meeting's phenomenal, and it's awesome to hear, and I get to sit there and I don't have to vote, so I just get to sit there and listen. And so and they let me show up a little bit late because I can never get there on time. I'm sorry. And that's the kind of my report from or as far as the update from the foundation, and Jared and Danielle too. I thank you guys for being here. And so as far as other reports, I'd like to welcome all of our new trustees and re-welcome our old trustees. Kathy called me old earlier. So.
Old. Experienced.
Yeah. And then I didn't want to detract. I know I kind of made a big deal of Australia Day, and it is a big deal. But more importantly, probably not more importantly, but very important to us, Kansas Day is on Monday. So I hope everybody celebrates and gets out, wears sunflowers, and Kansas proud. So that's right.
You know, when you brought up Australia Day, I wonder if you're going to bring up Kansas Day.
Exactly.
Ms. Trustee Koblet?
I really didn't prepare anything, Chairman, but I wanted to thank the voters and the public for supporting me. I'm honored to have this position, and I intend to try my very hardest to do what's right for this community and this college.
I just wanted to say welcome to the new folks that are sitting with us, and it's a pleasure to be able to help them get into the picture that they agree is worth working for. So I like that part, and I hope that we can be very civil in disagreements. We will have disagreements. That's the way we really grow and get new ideas. So we aren't running from that, but I welcome you all and look forward to working with you.
I'm glad that Trustee Presley mentioned that we really do have something to celebrate on this Kansas Day. Governor Brownback gave us a nice present. Sorry. We had an orientation session on the 13th for all the trustees, and we hit many subjects: board relations, Title IX, strategic planning, accreditation. So it was very worthwhile, and hope we have more things like that. And I'll be attending the ACCT Legislative Conference in Washington. I'll arrive there on the day they run out of money again. So maybe I'll get to see our government in dysfunction in person.
Okay, is that it? Okay. I do have a few things that I would like to discuss. You know, you'll see that, you know, what I am about here is board dynamics, board functionality. And, you know, I welcome the spirited debate in the boardroom, but then that's why we have a board. We have all these different points of view, and together we'll come to a consensus, and then when we do, we should leave with a unified voice. So in that, but plus with my, you know, only been on here for just 8 months, I'm still learning. So learning about a lot about what's going on. Dan says there's a lot he doesn't know, and that's normal for new trustees.
Can I interrupt you? I've been here 27 years and I'm still learning.
We all will. We all will. So there were some things that were brought up in the election that I'd like to learn something about. You know, some things that were brought to call here about things, and I would like to discuss that. You guys put out a 17-point bullet point of some wrongdoings and things that were happening at the college, and I'd like to discuss that. I brought copies of this so we can look at it. These are serious in nature, and I had questions, and I want to know what the things are that I should know. Pass those over. Does everybody get a copy? So, number one, the board knowingly hired a president who received a vote of no confidence from faculty and was accused in the Blinn College scandal. So I don't know the details of all this, and I'd like to know more. So, can you tell me, Mr. President?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Typically, I just want everybody to know, as a college president, this is my third presidency. Typically, when a president, and there's a position for a president, a lot of times there's issues behind that president that just left. And so that being the case, there was some issues at Blinn, and after I arrived, I did not know some of those issues, but they had some issues with systems, and there was some needs that need to be taken care of. In that, they were growing rather fast, so there was systems and procedures and policies that we needed to update. I also, the board chair, after they hired me, they told me there was a problem with their accreditation, and they were in the process of being put on notice from the Southern Association of Accreditation, and in that, that's a big deal. And when you it was a 135-year-old institution, and one of the oldest in Texas. And so they were in the process of being put on probation. So there's some things that I needed to work on also in some of those things. They also, the state of Texas has also put them on notice because their ratio. Now, you need to understand that the ratio was off. Financially, they had spent more money than they should have been spending the year before I got there. They had built a $13 million residence hall and did not have some of the bonds to pay for that. So that put them on a ratio problem. So financially, they were having issues there. My job was, when I first met with the vice president for finance, which interestingly enough was there for a little bit and then left and went to Temple and left an opening there. But luckily, I was able to hire a very competent financial finance person, the CFO. Matter of fact, she is now the CFO for Auburn University. So she and I worked through a lot of that. But we spent about an 18-month process working through some of those issues and talking about systems. And I realized real quickly that we realized that I could save $1.3 million very fast by changing the structure, the organizational structure. And we worked on that structure for, like I said, 18 months, and we were able to save $1.3 million. What I did was I had about 14 to 16 division chairs that were making pretty good money, and then the assistant division chairs, and I turned that into 16s. That irritated some people that didn't get those positions because they were division chairs, and I put them back into faculty, and that caused some consternation and some problems there for some of those people, and it caused a little bit of the friction there. We also had a situation that we had out of the 836 faculty members, I had 54 faculty that weren't qualified, and that caused some problems also. I'll give you just an example. One person said, I said, how in the world did you've got a master's in elementary ed, how are you able to teach higher level math? And she said, well, my husband was put in a very good position at Texas A&M. Well, that doesn't really help, in your accreditation. And another lady just said, well, I really enjoy teaching speech. I don't have any credits in it, but I like teaching the course. These are problems. These are problems that had happened so these were some of the issues that happened. So I quickly had to fix that. I met with all faculty, staff, administration to visit with them about the structure, and even hired a consultant to help us with that structure. But it still caused some consternation from certain people, because when you're a division chair, you feel like you should be able to be a dean, and that didn't happen to some people because you have 6 positions and there were 14 or 16 before that. So that caused some problems, and actually in the spring they were upset, and they were going to put it to a vote, and about a vote of no confidence. That didn't go through in the spring. They then went to had it in the summertime, where there was not a lot of faculty and staff there, or faculty there, and that did pass. A lot of people didn't receive notices, and so that was a part of the issue, because a lot of people came back to me. A lot of faculty came and said, I didn't even know they were doing a vote of no confidence. So I just want to be fully disclosure. Thank you for asking that question, because it's not. I don't take this lightly, and it hurt me. And I think I could have. Somebody had told me, well, if you might not have a vote of no confidence if you go ahead and keep it the way it is. But financially, I couldn't. I had to figure out where monies needed to come from, and so that's what we did. The other thing, which really kind of is an interesting situation. I was hired in November, and in February I was in my office, and I had lots of meetings, as you probably all know. And a gentleman, this was about the scandal, and my athletic director called me and said, look, I have a situation, and I'd like for you just to hear it out. And I said, not a problem. A young lady came into my office, She was very open, very upfront, and she was the academic advisor for the athletic teams. She said she was having a relationship with one of the players. She said, I know that's not right, and I know I'm not supposed to do that. She said, also, I'm doing his homework, and all his work was online. And I said, that's not, we don't do that. And she said, well, I know. She said, I've resigned. I've called the instructor and let him know what I've done. They're dropping him from that class, and that is it. And so from there on, that was the scandal. And later on, it became in the paper that I helped an athlete get, help that athlete out. I can honestly say that I've got a letter from my athletic director, and then it also appeared in the newspaper. And so I just want y'all to be aware, full disclosure, and I thank you for asking. And I will be as transparent as president as I can be. And sometimes we can't answer some questions, but I love to be transparent. I love you to know. I don't want any false assumptions that I've done something wrong. I will tell you. I'll be honest. I'll tell you when I do good things. I'll tell you when I do bad things. I will be honest when something's wrong at the college, and I've told this to everyone. When something is not right, I will let you know. I will let you know the goods, the bads, and all those things in between. And that's the only way I can be with the board. And that's the way I am. And I promise you. And I apologize if that came across wrong, but thank you, and thank you for asking that question.
Any questions for President Nolte? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to this issue? Further information? Okay, and then the last two presidents hired at DC3 were not the choice of the search committees, resulting in a cost of greater than $50,000 to headhunter companies. So there's 3 past trustees that were at least there for 1 of them, 2 of them, and then so I know as job as the trustee, it's our job to hire the president, and I've been involved with headhunters, which they bring you candidates, but when they come in, they might not necessarily fit the culture of that environment. So I'm assuming that's the case here. So if anybody, if the former trustees would like to speak to this, then great. If not, we'll move on. But that's a service provided to the trustees, and sometimes it bears fruit and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm just going to assume that it did not, and then you went a different route. And then you, if I understand correctly, were not the result of a headhunter, right? And you came in as interim with no intention to continue on as president. So the trustees did not like the previous, or the ones that the headhunters brought. How many people did they bring up?
Gary, I'm going to object here. I think we're getting into things that are not on the agenda. The reports to the board, by the trustees, I think have always been fairly bland. And I think this gets into areas where if anyone wanted to actually question Dr. Nolte about personnel issues, it probably wouldn't be an appropriate time to do that. Or the
I
board's-
understand that, Terry, but listen, I think, like I told you, I'm about board dynamics. And then these are things that I think we all ought to talk about.
Well, I do
And
too.
then,
I just
okay.
don't think today's meeting, I think you're right. I don't think that this
Well, then
time
indulge
in
me, I'm
this
going to
meeting is
continue
appropriate.
on, okay? I think we ought to get this aired out so that, because I really want to know some of these answers to this as pretty much a new guy. I want to know what's going on. So then we hired less than 4. Who are the Blaine College employees that are here now?
Keith Thomas, Robbie Thomas, Josh Thompson, and then Jake Ripple.
Jacob Ripple, okay. And is there anything wrong with them? Okay.
Well, would you expect us to say so in this meeting if we thought there were?
Well, you said these things in public, some of
I
them
didn't,
did, so
you know, I'm not
so
saying-
I'm taking them as serious issues.
I am not saying whether there is, because I think it's inappropriate to even address that type of question in an open meeting about whether the trustees think there's anything wrong with the people that were hired. I mean, if someone did think there was wrong, do you think this would be really appropriate for them to address that here?
I agree with Terry. This is not the appropriate time to go through 17 items that you're upset about during the
No, I'm
election.
not upset. I'm trying
You
to figure
obviously
this out.
are
I
upset
am?
about it.
I don't think I'm upset.
Well,
I'd
you're
like to
going through
know.
item by item here, and it just is taking up a lot of time that I don't think we need to spend on this kind of discussion. It has individual names in it, and I don't think people here on the board are willing to discuss those people in open session. And I just don't think it's the right thing to do in this particular setting.
Okay. When would be the appropriate setting?
A work session of some sort, a session where we had maybe a closed session. If you're gonna discuss personalities and persons and whether the board agrees that those folks are a value to this institution, it should not be done in an open meeting, because what you're asking us all to do is to make a judgment about someone that we may not even know. I don't even know who some of these folks are. And you're asking me to comment on some of these folks. And quite frankly, I've only heard of them just briefly, that they were competent, they weren't competent. And for us to go through these names, name by name by name, and all this in this meeting is inappropriate.
Well, the thing is, Mr. Rackenborn, you did know because you authored this.
I know who some of these folks are. I don't know them.
So
I
you
don't know
have
what, I
concerns
don't know
about-
whether their abilities.
But you have concerns about these
I do
people,
have
which
some-
question
still have some
things, and
concerns about it.
and I myself would like to know the facts behind this.
I'd like to know the facts too, behind them.
Okay, and that's what
Okay.
I'm trying to do.
This isn't a fact-finding moment in the
This is your
meeting.
your
What's
chance
your-
to inform me of the concerns you have about the college and whatnot.
What you're really trying to do here is to embarrass the people who
No,
opposed you
I'm
during the
not.
election.
I would like to know these things. If
Well,
we're gonna function
okay,
well together,
then
I would
this
like to
isn't-
know these things.
This isn't the place for it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Dan said in a closed meeting, and the lady that was here, the lawyer that was here before just said a closed meeting is like an open meeting. It's closed. Did I not get that right?
Coma.
You can have a closed
You
meeting.
can have an executive
But-
session.
Executive sessions.
But
You
then
don't-
we would have to go in and out
Yes.
on each of these
Each of
and
these
make
items.
some kind of a,
Well, if you're going to talk about individuals that might affect their privacy rights, it's appropriate to do it in an executive session.
That's right.
You guys talk about specific individuals.
okay, so those would be better held for an executive session. What about the others that, I think what Gary's wanting, and check me if I'm right or wrong, Gary. I think that because we're new, this was brought to the public, and we're all concerned on if the public is going off of all of this, what do they think we're going to do for this?
Correct.
And I think that you're trying to just figure out so that we're all on the same page for the public. But I do agree, maybe some of the personnel issues
Okay.
need to be addressed in a different format.
That's right. I would like to learn things that people were concerned with going on here. And so that's all I'm trying to do is figure that out. So,
I would suggest then we make a motion and put it on the agenda
okay.
to discuss and then determine from legal counsel as to whether or what parts of it should be in executive session and what shouldn't be.
All right, I would agree with that. Okay.
Then I have a question. If we go into executive session, how would the public ever know the answers to this?
Well, you're welcome to talk to the public. about anything you want to talk to the public about.
But if I'm in an executive
Well,
session, I'm not gonna talk to him about.
No, I didn't say that. I just said if you want to, I suppose there are a lot of things that were said during the campaign that a lot of people would like to know about, but that's what campaigns are for, and then they vote. They voted. I don't see anybody here, nobody asking any questions tonight about any of these concerns. If they do, I think they ought to be addressed. But unless the board puts it on the agenda, I just think this is totally inappropriate.
Okay, we'll move on.
Could we possibly do that in a workshop?
Well, yeah,
Still open session?
but, I mean, I think, may I see the list?
Still continues, a lot of things there
There,
I'd like to know.
there probably are things that could be talked very much so in open session, but there are some things that appear here that should probably be in executive session.
Okay,
So we
that's
could
fair.
go through and figure that out.
All right, but that, I think, Ms. Mansara, I think you explained it quite well is what I wanted. I just would like to know these things, because if we're working together and we're working with the administration, we need to know what we're dealing with and what we're all on the same page. So, okay.
I could just say, Gary, I'm glad, because there are really so many hours that we need to spend on issues, and I hope the entire board is willing to do that.
Me too, me too. So, and then that's probably one of the reasons why I want to talk about it, because I genuinely wanted to know, and I think, you know, that was, okay. Enough said. So, trustee. Next on the agenda, the action items, the ACTT proposal. Trustee Malone?
Latest report.
We do, I just one, you're right, there's one after ours. My bad, yeah,
Auditor.
Vader.
Yes,
I'll start marking things off as I go.
John Hendrickson is here from Kennedy and McKee to present us the audit.
If you all have the bound report in front of you and you open it, there should be a letter that's stapled and it's not actually bound. I'm going to start with it. It's a letter, yes, that's it. It's a letter to those charged with governance. It's required communication between the auditor and the board. And it just states in the first paragraph that we audited the financial statements of the community college as of June 30th, 2017. And under the qualitative aspects of accounting practices, it states that it's management's responsibility for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies, and those policies are in Note A of the financial statements. Also in this paragraph, if there were any new accounting policies that were adopted or any accounting policies that change, they would be noted in this paragraph. As far as estimates, the last paragraph at the bottom of the page, we're required to go over significant estimates, and there are 3 of them. The first one's on this page, and the first one is allowance for doubtful accounts, and it's based on historical revenues, historical loss levels, and the analysis of collectability of individual accounts. So those would be on student accounts. On page 2 of this letter, the second significant estimate is management's estimate of self-insurance claims payable, and it's based on claims, changes in claims, and claim payments. The third estimate is the estimate of the net other post-employment benefit obligation, and the estimates are based on an actuarial valuation that's done by an actuary, and it involves valuations on an ongoing plan involving estimates and the value of reported amounts and assumptions about probabilities that occur far into the future. Under difficulties encountered in performing the audit, if we encountered any difficulties in performing the audit in dealing with management, they would be noted in this paragraph. We did not have any. As far as disagreements with management, if there was a disagreement regarding financial, accounting, reporting, or auditing matters, they would be noted in this paragraph, and there are none noted. On page 3 of this letter, as far as management's consultation with independent accountants, if there were any disagreements and management wanted to consult with another accounting firm, they could do so, but professional standards would require that the consulting firm make inquiries to us to make sure that they have all the relevant facts before they would make a decision as to whether or not the situation is correct. Under other audit findings and issues, the second paragraph, which is kind of long, I'm just going to, I guess, give you a brief summary of what it is. When we were reviewing, this is another matter that we're communicating, and when we were reviewing the adult education program, the college charges orientation, material fees for the adult education program. And one of the things that we noted is that the manual requires that the college report those fees on the reporting that goes to the Kansas Board of Regents, the grant reporting, and those amounts for the materials were not reported, and then the corresponding expenditures that would have been shown that requires that money to be spent were not shown either. So one of the things that we're doing is just referring to this manual, and that in the future that those amounts be recorded. That's really all I have as far as that letter goes. If you would go to the bound part of the audit report, a couple pages in is the independent auditor's report, and it has Kennedy McKee's letterhead on it. It says page 1, but it's a few pages in. I'm just going to start in the first paragraph, and it states we audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, business type activities, discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information. So those are what we refer to as the opinion units of the college. Those are the units that we're opining on. In the management's responsibility for the financial statements paragraph, it states that it's management's responsibility for the fair preparation and presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's management's responsibility for the financial statements. Under the auditor's responsibility, our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on the financial statements, and we conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. So that's our responsibilities with regard to the financial statements. And on page 2 is the opinion at the top of the page, and it just states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position, and then it lists all of the opinion units I read earlier of the college as of June 30th, 2017. So you are receiving an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on all of the opinion units. So that's the opinion you want to see on the financial statements. The rest of this letter just goes over other information, and under the required supplementary information, it goes over the management's discussion and analysis. And the thing that it points out is it is not audited information. We do some limited testing on the MD&A, but we do not audit it and we do not opine on it. So keep that in mind as you read through the management's discussion and analysis. This report's about 80 pages long, and rather than going over it, I'm just going to skip to a few things that I think should be pointed out. One of the things I would like to point out is on page 39. There is a, when we do the audit, we do testing, and we do look at things. We look at compliance with certain statutes, and one of the things we're required to look at is the item that's cited in this paragraph. And the state requires that the college or any municipality remit any debt payments 20 days before they're due to the state treasurer so the debt payment can be made to the bondholders, and it was not done. It was actually received 15 days before the due date, but it is cited as a statutory violation. And of all the debt payments that were made, there was only one that was late. The other thing that I would like to just briefly go over is I'd like you to go to the very back of the report to page 76. This is a schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So this is money that the college spent that originated at the federal level. The total expenditures on this is $5,618,000. And the thing I want to point out is we're required to do compliance testing because the college spent more than $750,000. The thing that we're required to do is separate the programs between large and small. And what separates that is $750,000. So anything that is more than $750,000 is a type A program, and it's required to be looked at least once every 3 years. Anything that is under that is a type B program, and it is not required to be looked at unless a type A is not looked at. Yes.
Is that for the total or for each line item? The 750?
Okay, that's I'll answer that too.
Okay.
So the 5.6 million, we're required to look at 40%. And the way that we determine what we look at is if you look, there's a CFDA number column. So any of the programs that have the same CFDA number are considered to be their own program. There are some exceptions to that. Student financial aid is one of them. So where you see Department of Education, direct grants, and then there's the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, Federal Work Study, Federal Pell, and direct loans. Because the eligibility is basically the same on all of those, they're considered to be one program for compliance testing. So those programs make 3.8 million of the 5.6, which is about 70% of the total. So we wind up testing student financial aid on an annual basis because of that. And if you go to page 78, there's a required schedule of findings and question costs, and on the first item, it's that the auditor expresses an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which we've gone over. If there were any significant deficiencies relating to the audit of the financial statements, they would be noted here. If there was any non-compliance that was material to the financial statements, they would be also noted in this paragraph. And then in item 4, there were 3 significant deficiencies relating to the internal control over major federal award programs, and they're listed a little bit later. And then we're also required to opine on the major programs, and in item 5, we do express an unmodified opinion on the program that we tested as a major program. So even though we did have some internal control items, it did not change the opinion on the program. And in item 7, it lists the program that we tested as a major program, which is the Student Financial Aid Cluster. If you turn to page 79, item 2017-01 is the first item under Student Financial Aid, and unless you want me to go over them in detail, I don't plan to. I think they're somewhat self-explanatory if you read through them. And I guess if you don't, I'll go on to one more thing.
I think we're good.
Okay. One of the things I would like to go back to, I said I wouldn't go over any of the numbers, but I'd like you to go to page 10. And in the MD&A, there is some comparative information, and I know that when Trustee Reichenborn reviewed the report, he did have a question on a couple of variances. And I sent an email to Veda, but I don't think that the email actually got back to Trustee Reichenborn, so I would just like to address a couple of things. When you look at the Vocational Education Fund, at the bottom of the page, it shows the revenues and expenditures, and Under charges for services, you'll notice in 2016 it was $536,000. In 2017 it was $4.7 million. And then when you look at the expenditures, instruction was $2.5 million. It was $2.2 million the year before, which it increased $347,000. And then under academic support, it was $3.5 million, and the year before $280,000. And what happened was the agreement with the Universal Helicopter changed, and the college actually hired the instructors, which all the instruction expense is for the instructors and some other items. And the college, the amount in academic support that went up was the college paying for the use of the helicopters, more like a fee for service. So the tuition that was the amount that was going through it for charges for services is the amount relating to the money that was collected and then is going out. So it just, the process changed is what happened from the year before.
So that institutional support item grew that much because of the helicopter program?
Are you talking in the general fund?
Yes.
The general fund was a little bit different. The institutional support in the general fund increased. Part of it was because of payroll, and then there's also an allocation where institutional support is allocated between the vocational and general fund, and that allocation decreased during the year. So that was part of why that changed.
Can you tell me whether the helicopter program has made or lost us large amounts of money, or has it made any, or is it breaking even, or?
Well, previously, the way it was set up, there was a 3% administrative fee that was paid to the college. And that somewhat changed with this new agreement. And with it being so early, with not even a full year in the vocational fund, it's really hard to say exactly where things would be. And I say that too with everything else that's happened since.
Well, in previous years, was it a bonus or a deficit for the college?
Well, the 3% admin fee was a bonus for the college. But the rest of it didn't run through because the college wasn't actually paying the payroll for the flight instructors and those things.
In which we are now. or
Yes.
will be. It really hasn't started back up again, as far as I know. Is that correct?
It's operational in the Arizona markets, and we're waiting for approval in both Dodge City and in Provo, Utah.
It's operational under the DC3 banner?
Yes.
That's really all I have unless there's any other questions.
Well, I think I have a question on, well, maybe for some of the previous board members and maybe for Veda. I see we've got $4,715,000 in revenue bonds. I think that's for the dome. And my understanding was, and I just think this is poor due diligence on the part of the board, is that this money, $4.7 million, was not going to go on the tax rolls. I think that was what was promised, that it would not go on the tax rolls, and now it is on the tax rolls. And my understanding that dome was not going to produce a debt to the taxpayers of Ford County. But here's $4.715 million that is on the tax rolls right now and wasn't supposed to be there. Am I correct on that?
Can I point something out? That's technically not correct. What happened was that the foundation did issue the industrial revenue bonds. What happens under generally accepted accounting principles is the foundation is what's called a component unit of the college, And as a component unit, it means that it's a legally separate entity, but it still basically exists for the benefit of the college. And what happened was, when the bonds were issued, the college entered into a lease agreement to lease that building to use it, and that rental agreement is actually what services the debt.
And who pays for that, to service that debt? It's the taxpayers of Ford County,
Well,
correct?
it depends how you look at it. There's not a levy.
Where else would the money come from if it didn't come from the taxpayers? To pay off
Well, also,
4.7?
part of it's charges for services and things like that. I'm not saying it doesn't come from it, but it's not a direct levy on the taxpayers like a general obligation bond issue would be, that could be issued for building construction, where once that building is paid off, the levy goes away.
Okay, but
It's just a different revenue stream.
I know it is, but one way or the other, the Ford County taxpayers are gonna pick up the bill.
Indirectly.
Yes, indirectly, directly or indirectly. Doesn't make any difference to the taxpayers, it's still coming out of their pockets.
Yes.
And that was not supposed to happen with this, and that's the $4.7 million obligation that the college has now. And no other taxpayers have it.
But I also feel the foundation's working diligently to offset. That was the intent, and that is the intent when it got initiated. They're still striving to do that.
Well, I know it takes a lot of work to put together a building project, but when I was president of the board, we built Ross Elementary with no added tax to the taxpayers. We added on to Comanche School, number of classrooms, and a gymnasium. No added tax to the taxpayers, no extra burden. We turfed the field, put in seats, put in all kinds of weatherproofing stuff at a number of schools. We had a geothermal project over Northwest School. None of that added any tax to the taxpayers. They were not obligated in any way to complete those projects. And I just think it's a lack of due diligence on the part of the board when that was built, that was promised not to add money to the tax roll, and it has done that. And it's a matter of setting your priorities. I talked to Dr. Nolte the other day. I know that Adam Johns is going to Phoenix. He plans on adding another vice president, I suppose at another
I don't want to interrupt you,
$140,000.
sir, but I see where you're going with that, but we're still kind of on the topic of the
Yeah,
audit.
we are.
Maybe we should let the gentleman finish that.
And the other thing I would
Before we
point out
digress,
too is,
deferring to your previous statement about our time.
I say it's indirectly, because indirectly the taxpayers fund the college. But as far as the mill levy goes, the mill levy did not change as a result of this bond issue. That's kind of what I was trying to point out.
Which to me is what you're saying. So you built all those buildings, the mill levy didn't change, right? The mill levy didn't change at the JUCO either. And they built that building, and now we're leasing it.
The buildings we built did not add a burden to the taxpayers at all.
So the taxpayer didn't pay for it?
Indirectly, yes, but we
How indirectly is that?
Well, not the Ford County taxpayer. USD 443 and state funds were used, matching funds from the state.
What portion was state?
Well, quite a lot, really, actually probably around 60%. But we also tightened our belt in a lot of other places so that we could build those buildings and do the things we need to do.
Dr. Nolte, can you shed some history on this? Because I need some.
Well, and it happened way before my.
I was gonna say, it's probably not fair to ask Dr.
Yeah.
Nolte. He wasn't here.
It happened
Way before my
before he was
tenure, I'm
That's
sorry,
right.
sir. Matter of fact, when I got here, we had an $8.5 million.
Dr. Nolte inherited a lot of nice buildings. So he's doing a great job managing them, and we appreciate that, sir.
I inherited also, in my last institution, I inherited a $13 million residence hall that I didn't have money for either. So, my thing is we need to make sure that the foundation is working hard to raise funds, and that's what we're working towards. And also, we also need to be doing, deferred maintenance is a big deal here also. So my goal is for us to get these things paid for, so. And I understand, I mean, I agree with you totally, but somewhere, even if the state, somebody pays the state money, you know?
That's correct.
If
That's tax money.
That's tax money, and
I've taught government for many years, I'm well aware of that. On page 38, there's an item there, vocational education, and there's a $9.5 million budget, and actually spent $7.9 million. The variance is about $1.5 million there. What happens with that? Where's it go? And I'm not just asking you, I'm asking
Sure.
you too.
Well, could I point something out? If you
Yes.
go to page 26, there's actually a comparison to budget on the vocational fund. I guess the thing I wanted to point out on this vocational budget is you'll see an original budget and an amended budget, and under the student fees, it went from 1.1 to 4.9 million. So the original budget was published, and then when the agreement with Universal Helicopter changed, it required the budget to be republished, and it also required like the academic support under expenditures to change, and really those were just all estimates is what it amounts to, because it was such a large change, it was just difficult to estimate.
Okay. Well, for another time, I guess, I need to ask more questions about the budget, but I don't understand how the helicopter program is. It's reminding me a lot of St. Mary's truck driving school, quite frankly.
It's not gonna do that.
That's what they said.
Wait and see.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions?
I want to say a good thing. On page 5, in the middle of the page, it says, total depositions for the college increased. And that total came to $2,600,000. I think that's happy.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And when there had been comments made that we were washing debt with no way to pay it off. We also were A+ on the bonds that we got for the dorms. I don't believe very many people can say that. Certainly not the state of Kansas.
I've got a lot of other questions, but I won't take any more time tonight.
Okay.
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right. Next up, we have board action items. A, Association of Community College Trustees, proposal for board services. Trustee Malone.
Yeah, this is a matter that, if you look at the format or the review sheet, that the board has considered a similar proposal from ACCT, the Association of Community College Trustees, I think in February and April of last year, but it did not pass. The reason I have brought it to the board again, because it didn't pass, and we still have not addressed the very serious issue. I think it's necessary to have mediation and consulting services through the assistance of ACCT to help the board, the administration, and the faculty address the issues that divide the administration and faculty. Such services will help the board move the college forward and improve the atmosphere and morale of the employees. Most of all, the services will be a benefit to the students. It does have a financial consideration of a $20,000 fee paid to ACCT to pay the consultant that would be selected by the board, not by ACCT, plus travel expenses of the consultant and related shipping and printing expenses. You all have the draft proposal. Their ACCT's overview is this. It says that it is pleased to submit a proposal to provide mediation services to Dodge City Community College to restore trust between the Board of Trustees, the administration, and the college community at large. The purpose is because of grievances and complaints against the administration of DCCC. Mediation by an independent external entity is recommended to help restore trust and collegiality within the community and to enable a process of reconciliation to begin. To reestablish trust and confidence in the leadership of the college, the internal conflicts must be resolved and a healthy culture restored for the college to continue to serve its students and the community as it has done for the last since 1935. It says that mediation requires sensitivity and knowledgeable leadership and can be a catalyst to help trustees, faculty, staff, students, and community members to put aside differences, find common ground, and focus on the future well-being of the college. In addition, this engagement will help the Board of Trustees determine short-term and long-term adjustments that could be implemented to strengthen the board's CEO partnership and to boost the overall effectiveness of the leadership. Therefore, I make the motion that we accept the proposal made by ECCT as put forth in their draft for board services.
There is a motion.
I second it.
There's a second. Discussion?
Well, I think we saw during the election that there's a fairly big lack of trust by the community at large in the college in general. And that, I think that goes to administration and to the board. I think we have a lack of confidence by the college community in the administration and also by proxy to the board, since we directly employ Dr. Nolte and he is our employee. I think we need to do this just to listen to the faculty, just to hear what they have to say, get things cleared up, air things out, get it done, get behind us, and move on. And I don't see any other way to do it.
I don't know that I agree with you on those pre-assumptions that you made by the community. I don't know that I agree with that. But I do know that those questions that were brought up by the faculty had been investigated. Am I not right? They'd been investigated and...
You're not right.
I'm not right?
By whom?
I thought there was an internal
They
investigation.
weren't investigated by the board.
But the board is over the president, not over the investigation of faculty. I mean, we were just told that by...
Well,
In our training.
Yeah, in our
Kathy,
training.
That's true.
We don't do that. They told us very specifically, that's not our job, is to micromanage.
well, that's not micromanagement.
No, it's not.
If you read the ACCT, they are an organization, the only organization that is dedicated to providing services to trustees. They're not there to provide services to faculty or administration. They have a very
And I
specific
went to
purpose.
2
All right.
days training with them.
But, I mean, so they have people working on this, and there are articles published by ACCT. Like the faculty has voted no confidence. Now what does the board do? And that's not an issue that comes up every year, thank God. It's a rare event. So they recommend that, the board is kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. The faculty, they need a good faculty that's the lifeblood of the college. And it needs to get along with the administration as well, and we need to get along with the administration, but we have to all work together if we're going to have a good college that works best for the students. This is a way of bringing that together. You have two basically opposing sides, the faculty and the administration, and we're stuck in the middle.
And this was in 2016?
I think it's November of 16. and it hasn't been addressed. The publications suggest that it be addressed, and a good way to do it is to bring in a third-party consultant. This isn't a finger-pointing type of mediation. It's not proposing to point fingers or lay blame. It's
Trustee
trying to
Malone, the
heal
second time, we need to
wounds.
move
Excuse me, I'm
on.
sorry.
We need to move on. Okay, you're filibustering.
Well, I'm
So
sorry
you're
about
making
that.
major point.
I thought I was just doing what you were doing earlier.
And you shut me down, so I'm shutting you down.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
We haven't had the public speak as loudly as they did in this last election. I can't remember, I may be wrong, but I can't remember a time when a sitting board member, trustee at the college, running for reelection, was voted off the board. I can't remember a time. There may be one. But if there has been one, very few sitting board members who are running for reelection have been sent home. And so I think the public did speak pretty loudly, and I think they're tired of the dysfunction out here. I think one of the ways to get to the bottom of the problem is to have this done. Let's get it done. Let's get it behind us. Let the third party look at it. And
What would be the action taken from this? We're talking about spending $25,000 taxpayers' money, expenses.
Well,
They're
it'll be
gonna be a
fun
couple
when we
grand.
pay expenses.
Nobody's flying out here for free, so. As mentioned in here, we spent $50,000 on presidential searches, and that was being critiqued, and so we're gonna spend another $20,000+ here. I wanna know, what are we gonna do with the results that we get? And I do wanna ask a question too, Trustee Malone. In one sentence, you mentioned investigation, another sentence, you mean mediation. I absolutely do not want an investigation.
Well, yeah, if I did that, Jeremy, I misspoke.
And that's why I want you
think
to
they
clarify.
make-
I want you the chance to clarify.
In the proposal, and they make it clear, and in my speaking with the people who drafted this, that they don't want to do an investigation. They don't propose to do an investigation. They propose to do a mediation. And I can't think of anything better than to get people together talking.
Can we do that without them? Can
Well,
do it
we
without
haven't.
20,000 Can we do it without $20,000 of taxpayers'
We
money?
haven't. We haven't.
who's going to
We haven't even attempted to do it.
Well,
Remember,
But that's what I'm getting
remember,
at is-
3 board members last December, stated that they actually did an investigation when they didn't. Now, that was a slap in the face of the faculty, because the 3 members acting, where they didn't act as a board, but acted like they acted like a board,
The
just
confirmation-
basically
the
slapped the faculty in the face and said, we won't even listen to you, we'll just take exactly what the administration says.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a statement.
yes, please.
I've prepared it. Mr. Malone is right, there is dissension on controversial issues. Excuse me. We are waiting for definitive answers on many of them, but legal procedures move slowly. We don't have those answers now, but we will eventually. The upcoming HLC audit in April will answer some of the questions, but in the meantime, I see no pluses in rehashing the same controversies. ACCT is a good organization, but the director of this program is retiring, and we would be dealing with a less experienced person. We were disappointed in their services a few years ago when they sent us a misfit interim president. For now, to spend $30,000 when we will have eventually definitive legal answers on the issues is not wise, not a good use of taxpayers' money, and not good public policy.
I just want to respond to that. The ACC director, Narcisa Polonio, has nothing to do with this. She's the one she does write articles on why you should have mediation and what you should do, trying to give trustees direction when they're caught between a rock and a hard place. But the specific proposal says ACCT will not even, they wouldn't even be selecting the consultant. We would, the ones that they recommend, but they would be out of it completely because of a perceived conflict with Dr. Nolte. But I cannot understand, and I don't think the public can understand, the reluctance of this board to address a serious problem with the faculty, the first time in 82 years ever have voted no confidence. And I mean, that's a serious matter.
We have
We ought to
seen-
take it
excuse
seriously.
me,
Excuse
Terry.
me, Mr. Harshberg, I'm
Well-
talking. Right? And we ought to take matters that are serious seriously. And I think there's nothing more serious than a conflict between the faculty and the administration. We don't need administrators to run a college. They have never taught anyone anything. We do need the most competent faculty we can get. And I'm afraid that this will send a signal in the future that this isn't a place that you would want to teach.
I happen to think
I
that
do.
our administrators here have been teachers, okay, so that is factually incorrect. Number two, we have been informed by ACCT, this is not really their role. They will gladly take our $25,000 and go hire a person like Dr. Hockaday for $5,000 and do the same thing. So you're insisting on this, bringing up something back in 2016, something that has been addressed several times, to sit there and just squander the taxpayer money on this issue that has already been done, and it's been a year and a half ago. Okay?
Well, I don't
So
believe
there has
this-
been a second on the floor. We're going to take action.
I don't
Discussion
believe
is
this
over.
I'd like to say a few more words. I don't believe this is squandering the taxpayers' money. For one, I know that none of you, because you're sitting on the board, visited with faculty, because you can't. Number two, before the election and after the November election, I met with quite a number of faculty several times. They are unhappy. You do not send unhappy people in to teach children and think that they're going to do a great job, because they are not going to do as good a job as they could do, although they are professional teachers. You're sending somebody in, a disgruntled employee in to do the job you expect them to do, and it's difficult under those conditions. And I think that you need to find a way to listen to the faculty, and this is how you can do it. I can no longer go to the faculty and say, what's your problem? But before I got on the board, I could go do that, and there's some problems. And you have not done it, and you have not done it, and you have not done it because you were on the board and you couldn't go talk to faculty. You were relying on Dr. Nolte or other vice presidents to talk to the faculty, and they're coming back with this glowing report. I'm sure that the guy they just sent to prison today from Michigan State came back with glowing reports that he was doing a wonderful job. I think you need to listen. I think we all need to listen to what the faculty has to say. And the only way you're going to do it is by having a third party come in and listen to these folks, because you and I can't do it anymore.
I'm impressed with the fact that there are legals going on, and I feel that we should be willing to wait for those reports.
What legals?
What reports are you talking about?
The hearings about the helicopter program.
Well, that
And
hasn't
some
got
of the
anything
things
to-
on the local.
That doesn't have anything to do with these.
Nothing.
vacancies, does it?
We're not talking about the helicopter program.
We're
We're talking
talking
about
about a
faculty.
big
Ms. Ramsauer,
picture.
you have the floor.
Faculty in
Okay.
general.
I wasn't on the board, and I did talk with some people. But I also talked with a couple of the people that were in part of that voting category. And one of them is kind of one of the bigwigs of that group. And the numbers that may be misleading is the vote of confidence, the teacher's vote of confidence. When you take only a certain set of teachers and you ask for a vote of confidence, and that may be 65% out of 25 voting, out of the 100 and some, it skews that. And here we're talking about a horrible vote of no confidence when it may or may not be skewed numbers that aren't right.
And how will you find out?
I think your numbers are wrong, Kathy.
Well,
How do you plan on finding out?
that,
Just let it go.
all I can say is the gentleman that talked to me, his wife is very into all of that, and he told me that. I mean, she was one of the ones that was doing it and talked in front of this board.
I don't think it's something you can just let go, and that it's gonna solve itself and go
think-
away.
But I
It's
think
not
when you
gonna go
start
away.
an infection, you're not helping it by keeping it growing.
You're not, this is treating the infection, this is giving that infection a shot of antibiotics, so that folks will
Okay,
know
but we don't
something's
have to have
starting to
this
work.
group. We could do like what Dr. Presley said. That's a lot
Who are
of
you gonna
money.
get?
All right, we need to
have-
move
I mean,
on for
that's
the sake
thing.
of time.
We can go out and find different mediators, we can go look at different options or opportunities. I talked to Narcissa when you originally proposed this first or second
Yeah.
time, Terry.
Yeah.
Myself, she presented it to me, and again, I'm just quoting what she said, but that she had prepared this quote, prepared doing this. The original one was 10,000, then it went up to 20 the second time around. I never quite figured that out. But she, had kind of led that. And so I have concern now after getting the email that we all got, I'm sure last week, that she's no longer with the ACCT. So I had that question, which, I understand that she herself is not going to be the one to do it, but my biggest thing, and it's still a question I asked, is that gaining more information and spending dollars to gain information does us no good if we have no implementation strategy with what we gain from that information. If we don't figure out how we're going to, quote, make everybody happy and get along, then it was money wasted and time wasted, and then potentially more division developed. And that's what I fear, that it could backfire and go the other way. So I have my apprehension. That's where my apprehensions come from with all of this. Not to mention the taxpayer dollars being spent if it were to go the wrong way.
Well, if you
So-
don't know who's unhappy or why they're unhappy, how can you propose a fix?
And it's hard, it puts us in a tough position, Dan, because we also, you're also talking about a body that we're actively, that we actively, continuously are negotiating with too for the
But
contract.
you're saying, how would we fix this? Well, if you don't know what's wrong, and how can you possibly fix when you don't know what's wrong?
Well, from their impression, their fix was remove him. And if that's their only solution at the end of the day, then I don't know that we need to spend $20,000 to find out if that's their answer.
That's not our
because-
solution here, and that's our decision.
Exactly.
But it
And that's
doesn't
why I'm
hurt for
saying-
us to listen to what a third party would say. It's our decision, it's not the faculty's decision whether to remove him or not. Not at all. That belongs to us. So we listen to what the third party comes in and says, then we make our decision. And the decision may be a vote of confidence from this board. You don't have any idea what it's gonna be, and I don't either, because I don't know Dr. Nolte well enough to know whether he's been doing a great job, poor job, mediocre job. I haven't been around long enough to know that. But I do listen to faculty, because the lifeblood of this college is the staff, the faculty.
I'm
If
gonna
they
have
aren't-
those same apprehensions, sir, taking it from a third party too, because they're gonna have 3 days of time to make that decision and give us that impression. And so that's, again, where my apprehensions come, is that why would I defer a task to someone else that we can do ourselves and that we are better capable and skilled to do, because we are the ones to make the decision at the end of the day.
Jeremy, how would you,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question you're gonna ask, Jerry. 'Cause I know the
no,
question
no,
you're gonna ask.
and-
How do I go about interviewing all of our faculty, staff, and all of the college? And then the biggest thing is how do I make them all happy? I don't know. Maybe we take the $20,000 and we just have a big pizza party for everybody and they're all happy. I don't know, but I'd rather take the $20,000 and give them all, however much, divide that out amongst them in a bonus. And unfortunately, I think that'd be a better use of the money right now.
Well, I've stated before that a board is ill-suited to address these type of allegations or whatever, or complaints, because we are caught between a rock and a hard place. And, the institution is what's important, the students are what's important. I don't understand if I remember right, everybody I think last January said, well, yeah, bring it on. We're not afraid to see what they would say. Well, that's not the point of it to begin with. The point of it to begin with is to bring people together. But then all of a sudden that tune changed. It's a mediation. It's bringing people together, finding out whether we have common ground, and nobody's going to suggest that anybody get fired.
But Terry, you don't have to do that with this group. You can apply a survey, and I apologize, public and everybody, but I'm just drawing from being a principal for years and years and years. If there's a problem in a school district, it does a survey. It surveys parents, it surveys the students, it surveys the staff, it surveys administration. Then from that, we build our growth for the next 5 years. What do we need to improve? Where are our weaknesses? What can we do to change this? And we sit down and we talk about it.
Well, all I'm saying, you have a professional association that is over like 2,000 community colleges. All they do is try to make
They pull up the same surveys that we could probably pull.
No, they don't. I mean, you haven't even, you know nothing about ACC to you. Nothing. I mean, all I'm trying to explain is they're an organization that tries to help trustees build better colleges. That's all they're trying to do.
They're so naive about the surveys. The surveys came back from the administration and they gave us what they wanted us to hear. And when I asked for the whole number of surveys, they balked until I insisted they bring all of them down so I could read the comments. So don't tell me that the
All I can
administration's
say
gonna
is,
put out
I
a
did it that
survey.
way in my building.
Okay.
We learned
All
from
right,
what we do when we set our goals.
we've got to move on. I think, there's not a single trustee here that does not value, respect our faculty. And there are many different ways to go about this, then back to the same old stuff. And we're going to spend $25,000, $30,000 on people that are going to go out and hire somebody for $5 to come in and do it. It's another way to just blow money that some people here just like to do.
That shocks me that you say that when this board has to rent a room out at the event center out here to have a dinner when you've got the cafeteria right here. And you got food right in that next room and you're feeding the staff, the faculty every night. I mean, this bunch every night. Hey,
Mr.
eat supper before you
Rappaport,
come.
just keep your editorials to yourself on that, because gee,
You're talking about spending money.
Okay, yeah, let's
Now
talk.
you're real worried about spending money.
Yeah,
Let's stop
I am.
spending it.
Exactly.
Let's tighten the belts.
Stop wasting money. We
That's
just
right.
had a coma deal here that Mr. Malone cost us over $6,000. Okay,
You needed coma training.
that helped, but did we need to pay $6,000 for that?
I don't know, but you
How'd
sure
you know?
needed
How do
it.
you know we needed coma training? How do you know?
You were in violation.
Were we? No, factually incorrect. We were not in violation.
Yeah, Actually, the investigation revealed that the executive session was proper.
But the
What-
motion
what-
was improper.
The motion,
We needed-
well, the minutes and the
We
motion.
needed training,
Yeah.
Training does not hurt, but it darn sure didn't need to take us $6,000 plus to get to that point.
Gary, let's
Money
start
wasted.
worrying.
So we're gonna call to a
We want
vote
to worry
right now.
about money.
I call
Let's
for the
worry about a
question.
$4 million
Order,
increase
please.
in the
Order,
payroll.
Mr. Malone.
Yeah.
Order.
Good.
Ms. Ramsar, you have the floor. You have a comment?
I just call for the
Okay.
question. We've got a second on it.
Where there's a second, we're going to call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay. All those opposed?
All right.
Aye. Okay. Next item. Board policy number 219, Board of Trustees, executive sessions, second reading and approval. And Code of Procedures of the Board of Trustees of the Dodge City Community College, second reading and approval.
For the benefit of the new board members, when the board acts upon a policy, adopts a policy, modifies a policy, we have a first reading and a second reading. And so the first reading occurred in December, and the second reading is this evening. The purpose of the initial purpose of the amendment to Board Policy 219 in the Code of Procedure was to address the executive session issues. to make sure that the policy is consistent with what we discussed earlier this evening. And I think that's true both with Board Policy 219 and Section 24 of the Code of Procedure. We've made those changes, and I think those are good changes. Prior to the meeting, Trustee Reichenborn pointed out there's an issue with Section 3 in the Code of Procedure. And if you have that in front of you, that talks about a quorum. And we were all focused on the executive session. We didn't think about the quorum, and now having 7 members instead of 6 members on this board. In Section 3, it talks about a minimum of 3 affirmative votes shall be required for the passage of any motion or resolution. It requires at least 4 members to be present in order to have a quorum. And so I think we need to work with Section 3 and make sure that we have the language correct there. So, Mr. Chairman, what I'm recommending this evening is as to Board Policy 219, that it be approved by the board on the second reading, and that the Code of Procedure issue be tabled until the February meeting. Let us take a look at it.
All right.
On his recommendation, I would make that motion.
Okay, second.
Second, discussion?
I do want to remind all of you that according to this Code of Procedure, that last motion just passed.
Thank you for the editorial there.
It's not an editorial, it's a fact. You can read it for yourself. It takes
No, I
3
can't
votes.
Okay.
No, it takes a minimum of 3.
Yeah.
All right. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So you'll bring that procedure back to us in February? Okay. All right. So next up, we'll have the purchase agreement for the bus. So Vice President Herman?
Okay,
Done this one
in
here.
October, the board approved the purchase of a bus with contingent upon Glenn's approval, and now I'm bringing it back to you with his approval, and I'm gonna ask him to address the things.
What do you want me to address?
Well,
We had a contract, there were a number of problems with the contract. We worked with the company, they made the changes. And I think the contract that has been modified is in the packet, isn't it?
Yeah, you have the red line version.
Yeah. So those are the changes that were made and agreed to by the company and by us. And so if there are any specific, are there some specific items you want to?
no,
Okay.
no, I'm just bringing it back.
They
You
were-
you have read it and you concur with the contract?
Yes.
Okay, so
And- Yes.
okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and they were very good to work with us. They want to sell that bus.
I know.
Yes.
That's good. We need to get the bus here. So we are asking for approval of the 2007 MCI from Coach Industries in the amount of $299,735.
All right.
Do we have a budget present besides?
Yes, we do.
And is there something wrong with it, or is it too
No, we
small, or-
did. No, it's just with all of our teams, we need 2 buses,
And what?
and we just sold one.
What program will this benefit? I mean, really, do we just need extra because of all the sports programs we
Yes.
have?
Yes.
16 sports.
And I guess it's not an addition to, it's a replacement of. And we sold the old one for I think it was 29,000, which we offsetting this one.
Which we couldn't get parts for.
Yeah. and it was out. So if you have any, I have Justin. Where is it? Yes. If you have any specific questions you'd like to ask him about the bus, he'll be glad to answer them for you.
You know, Veda, in the sake of continuity, when we looked at this several months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we had, the purchase agreement plus, what we traded in, I think that would help refresh the trustees' memory, especially in this situation when you have many new, that they would see what happened, that you traded off one and what the price was and here. So I don't think that would be too much more to add to this if when we bring this back up, we can see, what was traded off and the value, and just for the sake of continuity.
Absolutely.
Would that be fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Then that would answer some of those questions, and then they can see this and make a more informed decision. So there's a recommendation from council that he reviewed the language in the contract and approved. So we'll take action on that first.
I move to accept, or to purchase the 2007 MCI J4500 in the amount of $299,735 as recommended.
I second that motion.
Okay. Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing
It
none.
has
those-
to be a question.
Yeah.
Did we do all the logos and everything like we need to do?
Yes.
Colors and it matches?
We haven't seen it yet, but as soon as it gets here, we're gonna hope it does.
It does match.
We gotta look good.
Well, I read
It's
the
a little
contract,
bit
and
more
it's,
of a
the
basic
contract
logo
covers
scheme
putting all the
than it
logos
does
on
Yeah.
for that price.
We
Right.
do the same thing with the old here.
Yeah, but it's,
Okay.
the contract that Glenn approved has all the logos in it.
Justin says it'll be here tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, there is a motion and a second. Are you satisfied? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign, okay. We'll move to the finance agreement.
Okay, this is with Key Government Finance. And again, this was subject to Glenn's approval. And I think we have to ask the board for approval, some of the approval for waiving the requirements under Kansas statute. Glenn?
Yes, let me get to that. While I'm doing this, if you ever want a contract negotiated, I'd get a hold of Justin, because he's tenacious in terms of dealing with these finance companies. He's had much more success than I've ever had. And I appreciate the work he's done. As you typically find in a finance package, there are certain things that the financing company do not want to take responsibility for, because of course you've picked out the bus, and so they're limiting warranties as far as their responsibilities goes. We have warranties over on the purchase side, and so after we visited with them on multiple occasions, we're recommending that you approve the financing agreement with Key Government Finance, Inc.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second. Second. Okay. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay. All right, item E. Fiscal year 2017-18 salary for full and part-time administrative, technical, program technical, and classified employees. Vice President Furman.
We're asking for approval for a 2% raise for all of the administrative, program tech, and classified employees, as well as part-time. And it'll be retroactive back to July 1. The reason we waited this long is the board asked me to, if we could afford it, and I said I would like 6 months to see where we're at that point, and confirmed that I actually had carried over money that we could afford a raise. So, and I'm making that recommendation now that we can afford this, as well as for Glenn to negotiate with the faculty.
And what's, excuse me, Lynn, what's the cost?
Well, we got to 85,000, but I'm just saying not to exceed 100,000 when we did it individually. But we didn't include the We didn't go back and go through all the part-time, so it's not going to exceed 100,000.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with all the terms. Is this for all teaching staff or just
No,
technical staff?
this is non-faculty.
Non-faculty staff?
Yes.
And on that point, Betty, can you, for everybody's education, this is comparable to and/or probably a little behind the raise that we gave for the faculty staff last year, correct?
This is the same thing we gave for staff
faculty
in
and stuff, yeah.
last year,
Yes.
2%.
Yeah.
Yes.
I move approval.
Okay. Motion, second?
Second.
All right. Discussion further? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Opposed, same sign. All right. Calendar year for the academic year 2019-2020. So we have Dr. Jane.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd just like to start, first of all, by thanking all of you for your public service, and especially to the new board members and also to the returning. I'm presenting to you for your consideration and approval calendar for the 2019-2020 academic year. As you can see on the consideration form, we do need to have calendars out 2 years in advance. And so we did have the 2018-2019 calendar approved last year, and this 2019-2020 then is for the subsequent year. We did follow board policy in putting the calendar together that you have before you, and that board policy is 833. And so we work with the calendar committee. As Dean of Academics, I chair that, and the president recommends two other administrators, and the faculty association then recommends 2 faculty members to serve as well. And so along with myself, Vice President Tamont, and Athletic Director Jake Ripple, and then our faculty representatives are Sherry Curtis from Science and Math, and Colby Klein, who's automotive on the workforce side. So we met initially towards the end of the fall semester to compare this draft, what emerged to be this draft, with our current and other calendars. We shared that with Adam John and got his input, and also checked with the instructional council, which gave us some additional input from division chairs on their thoughts on the calendar. And so made some revisions, and with the help of Justin Wilson from Publicity and Marketing and Charlene Picker in the Executive Vice President's office, put together this draft for your consideration. So, do you have any questions?
How much time does it take you to put this together?
You mean
Look ahead
like
that far?
technically with all the
Yes.
little triangles and stuff?
No.
Sorry. Because that's the hardest part, actually, getting all the symbols correct. And I do appreciate all the work that Justin Wilson and Sharon figured through to do that. We're not making significant changes. We do need to make sure that we have the 168 days that our faculty are contracted to work, and so we spend some time counting those out. We do have discussions about leave time, for instance, or when the campus will be closed. We have had traditionally the AQUIP all campus conversation days in April, but we decided, for instance, to change that to the accreditation all campus conversation. So, all told, I would say several hours when you think of the number of people who are involved.
No, I just appreciate hearing the scope of what you have to look at, so that's good to know.
Jane, say again, how many days?
168.
168.
Contract days.
Yeah, okay.
And so, for instance, when you look at May 2020, that's where my eye fell first of all. On May 8th and 11th, you notice that those days are boxed, as is May 2nd. And so those are days that while we don't have students on campus at that point, for instance, faculty are contracted to be here. May 2nd is graduation. May 8th is when traditionally grades were due on the 8th. But because of that conversation day, in April. That's a contract day. With no class, we extend it out to that 11th in May.
That's 168 contract days?
What's the compensation day?
It's something that's associated, it's a moment in time that's recommended by our current HLC process, and so it's an opportunity for the campus to get together to talk about matters of accreditation. That's a brief summary.
Staff, faculty?
Faculty, staff.
That's the
administration.
AQUIP Day?
Yes.
Really, yeah. That's our accreditation program, AQUIP.
Okay.
We all get together and talk about it.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the calendar?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, next up, item G, Educational Credit Management Corporation, Default Management Company, Master Service Agreement. Dean Lanning.
Good evening, Board Chairperson Harshberger, Board of Trustees, Glenn Curbs, Dr. Nolte, Carla. So I'm bringing for you this evening an agreement with Educational Credit Management Corporation, short known as ECMC. This is a default management company. So with our financial aid department, every year, the federal government Department of Education, we report our students that get loans through the college. And then we are graded based on our default rate every year. I think I've put in your information that in the fall of 2013, our default rate was a 32%. When it is that high, then the Department of Education kind of says, what are you guys going to do to make this go down, and how are you servicing our students that get loans? So at that time, we created a default management plan. We reported to the Department of Education. Part of that plan, we changed some of our processes in the offices and kind of looked at what we did within the financial aid department. And then at that time, we went with SALT, which is a outside third-party servicer for working with our students and educating them and repaying their loans and going back into repayment. That agreement ended in December 31st, 2017, the SALT agreement did. SALT, the company that we went with, no longer does default management. So this last fall, the financial aid department and myself looked at different companies to go with as a new default service provider for our institution. The financial consideration, under current considerations, I did look at different companies. ECMC I thought was the best company. I liked the products that they had. I liked the involvement that we have as an institution in working with them. With the information that I provided you, it has the information about default prevention and all that they will do. But then the loan tracker dashboard, this gives us access to go in as an institution and look at who they're working with and kind of work with them as well. So I really liked that component of ECMC. Also, you'll notice that ECMC was one of the lowest institutions to work with for financial considerations.
Did they come in with any recommendations? Did you talk to any other institutions that use them? Any recommendations?
So in this process, we did phone conversations with them and presentations with them, and with several companies. When we went to the RMASFA conference that was held in Wichita, the vendors were there. We worked with different vendors. And yes, we are in communication with other colleges and universities to see what companies they liked best and how well they worked with them. So yeah, we did contact other schools.
Did SALT have a per borrower per month fee as well, or is that just a flat fee?
With SALT agreement, that was a flat fee. They pretty much charged us like $5,000 the first year, then I think it was $2,000 the second year, and then like $3,000, $4,000, $4,000, for a total of the $18,000 over the 5-year period. And the last year of our agreement, they did not do the default management. So that's why we chose to go with a different company.
Does your dashboard break it down to individuals if you need?
So yes, it will break it down into individuals that they're working with. As an institution, we can go into, they call it the NSLDS, which is the National Student Loan Servicer. So I can actually go in and pull off reports as to who our students are that go into repayment and who are getting ready to go into repayment, how many days that they're have defaulted and stuff like that. So I can kind of keep a track on that. What we report to the federal government through NSLDS, I can also pull that information out. And then this company just does more of a, they're calling them, they're communicating with them, they're talking with the companies that service their loans and working with them to try to get them into repayment, consolidating loans and stuff like that. Through the NSLDS, working with our students, some of them come to our institution with other loans from other institutions. So these companies kind of work with them, consolidate them, and help our students.
I'd like to know if you can break this down for me, not tonight, of course, but how many are Ford County students that are in default? How many are Kansas, and how many are out-of-state students?
Okay.
Those 3 categories.
Okay.
I'd like to know.
I can do that with our most recent one, with the number that we had in default, that 17.4%. I can tell you, I can give you a list of those students as to if they were Ford County, out of Ford County, Kansas, out of state.
You're not going to give me names, of course.
No, I will not give you names, sorry.
Thank you.
She can't.
You don't have to apologize. Thank you.
I will not give that.
I thought you said you were going to tell me who, but I just want to know where they're
I'll
from.
give you the breakdown of those students.
All right.
Okay.
It's called FAFSA.
Yeah, there's confidentiality and stuff like
I
that.
know.
They haven't signed the FERPA release for me to release that information to you, so.
I don't want it. Okay.
Any further questions for Dean Lanning? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
So move.
Okay, is there a second? Terry? Okay, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, vote nowhere, same sign. Aye. All right, item H, Board of Trustees self-evaluation. Trustee Presley.
And Carla listed this as a discussion / action item because I don't know that we really necessarily need to take action tonight. It's just, I wanted to get it on the agenda so that we can work on making a time. Because self-evaluation, technically, that's, well, ourselves, and so we fill that out on our own time, but then we present that back to Carla, and then she compiles the information, and then the most important aspect, and really what I wanted us to talk about was, when are we gonna get together and talk about it then, so we can start making progress towards our mutual goals and wishes for this college. As per our conversations tonight, we've got to come together so that we can make progress for everybody else to come together. So I hope we can utilize this as one of those opportunities. I think Trustee Malone's going to talk on a similar subject here soon. So I just wanted to bring it up. My personal thoughts and feeling on this are that obviously I don't really think that the board needs to self-evaluate now because, well, half the board's new right now, so it's pretty hard to evaluate anything until you've got some experience under our belt. So, but I just wanted us to start batting around some ideas and when we thought a good time for that's going to be. You know, personally, I think it's probably late spring towards the end of the semester, and the summer months are usually a little bit slower discussion time for the board, and so maybe that's a good time for us to maybe implement those and giving all the new board members a few months to get some things under their belts and then be able to provide some valuable feedback.
The problem was we never took time to get together to go through it.
And that's my reason for bringing it forward, Gene, is that we do it, but if we don't talk about it, it doesn't go anywhere. So I want us to implement that timeline, and that's something that Carla can organize and put together our time. She does such a great job of getting all 7 of us here together. And so
With everything else.
Yeah, it's always a tricky task, I'm sure. And we thank you for that.
I do have a copy of what we used in the past, so I'll just pass it around for your review.
I think those are useful tools, especially if you do follow up and review them. And it's always good to hear what your fellow trustees are thinking and good feedback on others.
And so that's all I had on that. And again, I think it's more of a discussion item. That's something to be addressed later, so we don't have to take action on that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jeremy. We'll move on to item I, evaluation of the president. And it was handed you out.
That was a gift from Dr. Hockaday.
Yes.
He said, if you don't have an instrument, I found you a really good one.
Oh, good.
So,
Anyway, I'm bringing this to the board because we talked about it, I think, in December, and we talked about it 2 weeks ago, and the contract talks about it. Matter of fact, requires us to do it. We haven't done it since Dr. Nolte arrived, so it's time for us to do it. And so I think if we voted on it, then we would make sure that it gets done. But I think that we need to get together and agree on a structure and how to do it. I think since we haven't done it for 2 years and we have new board members, I think we ought to contemplate a couple of different work sessions and delineate certain areas like you were talked about before. I think Gary, curriculum, things of this nature. So anyway, for it to be effective, I think we need to put some thought into it.
I agree. I suggested that we get a template to work off. By no means is this the evaluation that we'll have. And so if others have other examples that we can use to help figure out how and what criteria we would like to use to give the president the feedback that he needs to do his job correctly. So I think in this period of time, and I think probably towards the end of the year, would that be appropriate to do the evaluation as we look at salaries?
I'm the end of this next year. I'm thinking, Gary, that it's all kind of intertwined. That since we really, I think as a board, really haven't talked about a lot of these issues. They don't get talked about in board sessions. Maybe we need some work sessions that could help. When we talked about that, could learn about Dr. Nolte's recommendations or his thoughts on those things, or his vision, plus the vision of the board, and then that would help in evaluating how he believes that we are doing, or what we should be doing, in line with the board. I don't think the numbers are a good way to do it, because we never at least talk about it as to we really don't have any discussion with the president about certain things. So I'm telling you, I don't know. I think if we would start it, maybe start the process maybe in April, and see how the first one goes. I'm thinking that it would take 3 or 4 sessions.
Are you saying sessions to build a proper review?
No. I mean, I think with maybe everybody could chime in, give you ideas, send you ideas on how they think it could be done, and we could come together on a somewhat of a format to use, and then charge ahead, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good instruments out there.
There are a lot of good.
And I know that Dr. Nolte is in favor of this, because every good president or superintendent wants to know.
That's right.
Get some direction from the board.
I've been evaluated for 35 years.
Yeah.
This is the first time it's been a couple of years.
Yeah. And so,
Well, okay.
it's just something we need to find the right instrument and
Right.
do.
So that will be our charge here, is to come to an agreement on, what instrument we're going to use to evaluate the president. So we'll be looking for your input on that, and then we're probably going to have a work session to pour through those different ideas.
Mhm.
So we've come to a consensus on what we need out of a CEO.
And I would also, I'm sorry.
You were going to say something. Well, I will say it. I'm hoping that as we do this, that we get to spend some time with Dr. Nolte and say, tell me about your vision for curriculum. What have we as a board failed to address? What could we do to help you? What have you done? And I want to hear in depth about what he thinks before I put any mark on whatever tool we choose. I want to know what he's thinking, what he's planning, and so now I'm just agreeing with you, Gary.
That's
So
what that's exactly right. That's what we all need. Ms. Hampton?
Well, I think that's been one of our failings. We have not taken enough time to talk among ourselves. And we really don't have a base because we haven't done that. And with Dr. Nolte. So I agree with Maya.
I think we should I think we should approve this tonight, and then I think we should set a timeline and look for some instrument that we would like to work with.
Just so I'm clear, approve what?
Motions that's on the floor, you have a motion to evaluate the president.
Well, we're
what we have
required
here.
to. I think what
But it hasn't been done yet.
the evaluation, what I'm saying is, for us to do that, we need to build what evaluation document we want to do.
I think we need to know.
You see what I'm
that
saying?
I think we need to know that we're gonna do it and try to find some timeline so that we.
Terry?
Well, I think we're all agreeing.
I think we're agreeing.
We just need to get a little bit of a format, and then when we get that, then make decisions on how we want to proceed with the evaluation, the best way to do it. If Dr. Nolte has been evaluated so many times that he might be able to give us some idea, at least his other format for that.
And I would love for you to know what the staff is doing also. I think we need a workshop also to let you know and ask questions, for example, what each person is doing, the staff, and I'm used to that, as well as, Glenn, we'll go over policies and continued training is what I'm trying to say.
I'd like to hear from the staff more than we're hearing. I mean, you have heard in the past, I guess.
Can I suggest, Terry, that, and I don't know, and as the parliamentarian, I guess you're the person to ask, so if you can amend your motion to just put a time on it then to get us started, because I think that's really the key is let's get the ball rolling. We all agree, so let's say end of March after spring break. That gives Carla a place to shoot for, and then we can schedule the further ones from that point. But I just like to get it on paper so that we got a goal.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just so I'm clear on that too. Is that to do the evaluation? That's to
Set a
come up?
calendar.
Pardon?
I think it's to set a calendar for the evaluation as well as several work sessions that I've heard that we need.
I'm going to basically make a motion to begin the process.
Okay. All right.
And then have perhaps a first stage at the 1st of April or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Please. I second that. It's great. Did you get all that, Carla?
She will. I'm gonna slow down here. All right. I would move that the board begin the process to prepare for the evaluation of Dr. Nolte, and with a timeline for a format to be decided on by April the 1st as far as the framework.
Okay. Right. And I'll second that.
Okay. discussion on that? So in the process of getting to that framework, then we'll need input, and then we'll have to have work session or two, whatever it takes, to develop that framework, right? Okay.
Thank y'all for evaluating.
All right. There is a motion, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Very, very good. So we'll be looking at some different examples of this and work it out. All right. Unfinished businesses, there is none. New business. So we have board policy 5000 through 5008, first readings. So Dean Hawarda.
Thank you. I guess by way of background, those of you who are returning to the board may recall that Vice President Tamont had started us on this revisiting of board policy last year. And so she invited me to work with her with the board policy series 500 through 508, which are concerned with academics. And so you also have in front of you a letter from Council Curbs noting that he's also reviewed those. And you should have in your board packet a copy of the original and then the proposed revisions. And so this process is to initiate a first reading and discussion about the policies. If you look at the original versions, you might see why we're working on this. Some of these haven't been looked at since 1987, and so I shouldn't say they haven't been looked at, but they haven't been updated since 1987. And so I appreciate that we have so many members of the board who have both teaching and administrative experience, so can understand that the language changes, and so this is a good opportunity to update that, as you are practices in education. And so Series 500, however, I'm recommending no changes to that. You can see that it's concerned with establishing a calendar for this school year. 501 has to do with college transfer program, and there are some substantive changes in language of word choice that I'm recommending. For instance, in the original 501 from April 1987, we're talking about transferring work to a senior college or university, and I'm suggesting that we update that to academic courses and degree programs that are transferable to four-year colleges and universities for credit towards undergraduate degrees. And so it's not a deep change in meaning or intent, but I think the language is more current, sounds more like the way we refer to these processes. 502 concerns itself with vocational technical education. Dodge City Community College shall offer courses, certificates, and degree programs to meet the workforce needs of the college's service area and to meet the needs of students who wish to document work skills for technical and/or occupational employment. Again, updates in language, and rather than saying just occupationally oriented programs, making it a little more specific in terms of courses, certificates, and degree programs. 503 concerns itself with community services, adult and continuing education. Again, some of the prominent changes are offering programs to meet educational needs of those in our service area, offering services to meet the needs of our community, and how and the ways that those services would be conducted.
I have a comment or a
Yes.
question. Would there be a reason to mention online in this policy?
I think that's a good suggestion.
You might look at that.
I think if the language is more specific but yet loose enough as to not limit ourselves to any one kind of delivery. And so I think that the delivery would also be inclusive. Okay, so it could include online or face-to-face or teleconferencing, for instance. So, but I will make a note of that. 504, developmental. Those of you who know me, if you've received an email for me, you know that I can be verbose in email, and so when you look at it, you can see it's grown a little bit here, 504. Focusing on the idea that developmental develops basic learning and appropriate language skills rather than just remedial and developmental instruction for high school youth. Just simply stating that an awareness that we do have students who, of all ages and all backgrounds, who would benefit from developing basic learning and appropriate language skills. And then also adding so that they're prepared for college level study in academic and workforce programs. And then acknowledging the importance of assessing and reorganizing as needed. 505 concerns itself with academic freedom. And again, I've also expanded this. I think most notably the expansion comes in the first and the second paragraphs. There's not much change to the third paragraph. I'd like to draw your attention to the change to the third paragraph first. And so if you see about 4 lines from the bottom, faculty may be judged by the public and their institutions by their utterances, and I add and posted comments in recognition of changes in the ways we communicate since the 1980s. And so it's not just the way we conduct ourselves as faculty, but what we're saying and how we say it. The second paragraph it does maintain the original second paragraph. In essence, I did change instructors to faculty, for instance, and added some context and definitional material for the concept of academic freedom. Updated, I think, the language and practices in the first paragraph.
I'd like to see a paragraph in there, a short one, maybe a phrase added in that speaks to property rights of faculty. I understand that sometimes faculty, when they leave, are not allowed to come back in, get their property, their lessons they've developed, personal property and so on from their offices, teaching stations.
I appreciate that input, and I will take it under advisement. I do believe we have another policy that deals with intellectual property rights, which is distinct from the academic freedom. Academic freedom, as I understand it, has more to do with speech.
Yes.
And intellectual property rights is another very important topic, but I will double check that. I believe that there's another policy for that.
Okay.
Distinct policy for that. For outside speakers, 506, I did recommend a change in title from outside speakers to guest speakers, lecturers, and forums. And this would speak, this is specific to speakers, lecturers, and forums that pertain to the academic or workforce instructional types. Student services, student activities, student life also invites speakers, performers, or whatever. But this speaks to those people who would come on campus as part of an ad or a supplement to instruction. And therefore, those guest speakers, lecturers, and forums as scheduled classroom and campus activities, especially those that are relevant to the college's academic and workforce programs. Requests for such visits should be approved by the Office of Academic Affairs well in advance, and that's primarily so that we can make appropriate arrangements for that visit. So, lastly, 507, scheduling of classes. And this is just to clarify the role of administration and administrative staff in putting together the class schedule. And so this is a pretty comprehensive rewrite and if you don't mind, I'll read. To assure an optimal learning environment, scheduling of classes shall depend on various factors, including types of instruction, modes of delivery, available facilities, staffing, apparent demands of the college's service area, and any guidelines of regulatory or accrediting agencies. For example, for regulatory or accrediting agencies, and I hope Brian will jump in if I misspeak, in nursing, for instance, you need to follow a strict student-to-teacher ratio. And that would be an example of the guidelines of regulatory or accrediting agencies. These factors are to be considered by the president and the president's staff charged with instructional oversight when organizing and scheduling classes and determining class sizes.
I'd like to see us have some underlying goal that, for the students, that they can have some completion of programs that they've started. And I don't think we put that in there, but talked to some upper level math students past several weeks, and some of them are disappointed that some of the classes aren't making, so therefore they're missing out on some of the upper level math classes that I think we should be providing, even though I know it's going to be an extra cost to us. And I've talked to a few other areas where they're worried about completion in the welding program. If you spent 3 semesters here, you got 1 more semester, and your class doesn't make, say in pipe welding, maybe we ought to be offering that anyway, even if we have fewer students.
I think that's a good addition to this policy, to add something about assuring that students can complete their degrees. I would like to add that in practice with Dr. John the last couple of semesters. You've been, I think, very attentive and responsive to that situation. We have had a couple of cases, for instance, where it appeared as though a student needed a particular class to graduate or to progress in his or her degree plan, but actually there was another option.
Okay.
And speaking of gen eds, for instance, someone might say have to have a sociology class to graduate, and we could say, well, yeah,
Not being
but you
offered.
could take psychology, and it's offered.
Okay.
We also have, under Dr. John's direction, let courses that would seem to be seriously under-enrolled with 1 or 2 students proceed to meet that student's need. We have made adjustments in the compensation to the instructor in that case if it's an overload of others. So I hope that addresses your concern, but I do think that's also a good comment regarding this point could be incorporated into this particular policy.
If I may add to that, when we do policies, they need to be encompassing, but you don't want them also to tie your hands as well.
Right.
So you need to be very cognizant of that, and so you have latitude, and you find to have that as a principle, but don't do things in a policy that would tie your hands.
To meet your concern and to address your comment, perhaps to assure an optimal learning environment and student success.
It doesn't, I don't know if that addresses the completion program, no, part of it.
Students' attainment of educational goals as possible.
Well, I think on-time completion is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very doable with what we're doing here. So I think that that's fair to say something about on-time completion.
Okay.
I think we got number 1 in the state of Kansas for completion and graduation.
Finally, by the
Right.
way, and this concerns program evaluation. The change here comes at the end of the second sentence on the original. Instead of to serve the needs of students in the community, of course, I had to expand it. Serve the needs of students, college's service area, and requirements of regulatory and accrediting agencies. And so we do, of course, want to evaluate and assess our programs, but we do have a larger audience, if you will, to consider and assess the regulatory and accrediting agencies again.
Is that who does the evaluation?
It depends on the program. For instance, the workforce programs, I think particularly in nursing, have external accrediting agencies that come in and do the evaluation and the assessment. We do have an internal process for academic and workforce programs as well, and that considers the needs of the service area, the qualifications of the faculty, the range of courses, enrollment, and to a certain extent the cost of all of that.
Do we allow students to evaluate the programs too, or is there any instrument that allows that?
We do value student input at the course level, and so students do have the opportunity to evaluate their instructors who are scheduled for evaluation.
Well, I was thinking maybe broader than that students would evaluate, say, I was looking forward to this type of education and I wish you offered this, and this. You know, some different programs. This input from students.
One of the things that I might suggest is at other institutions I've been at, and we have here program advisory committees, especially for all of our technical programs, and at other institutions I've been at, you've usually had at least one or two student representatives on that program advisory committee, so that might be something that we can look at as well.
Our assessment committee is also geared up the fall semester, and so they're developing ways to assess their courses and programs. The assessment committee is comprised primarily of faculty, and then Dr. Searcy and Dean Osmus and I are also members of that committee, and so they're developing a more methodical way of collecting data that would also include input from students and student performance in those classes in order to make some recommendations for changes.
I'm just asking that, is there someone, one of you that would say to students, what could we do better? How could we change things that would better suit you, that would, you know, provide a better opportunity for you, better experience for you? And if we're not asking students, then I think we're missing a great chance to get the feedback we really need.
Point taken.
Yes, we do. We do have a departure survey, right?
And exit survey.
Exit survey. Pardon?
Maybe too late if you're exiting.
That's a good way to get feedback after
Yeah,
the
it
program.
is. I
that
agree.
it builds, okay. All right. Thanks, Dean. We'll look at that, and then we'll have a second reading at the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Move on to the consent agenda. We've all had a chance to look at the consent agenda. There was one new item. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda when ready.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. There's no executive sessions today. And then we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. See you at the next episode. Down the road.